Coming up on One Detroit, we'll talk with the playwright and an actor from Detroit Public Theater's new play, Soft Target, which deals with childhood, guns, and trauma. Plus, 5 of the candidates for Detroit mayor talk about the future of public transportation in the city. And we'll give you some ideas on what to do in Metro Detroit this Mother's Day weekend. It's all coming up next on One Detroit.
From Delta faucets to Behr paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit PBS.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit PBS. Through our giving, we are committed to meeting the needs of the communities we serve statewide to help ensure a bright and thriving future for all. Learn more at dtefoundation.com.
Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you.
Just ahead on One Detroit, you'll hear what some of the Detroit mayoral candidates had to say about the city's bus system at a forum on transportation. And we'll take a look at what's happening around town this weekend and beyond. But first up, a new play at Detroit Public Theater is tackling the difficult topic of mass shootings. The production is called Soft Target, and it examines the fallout after a school shooting. Will Glover spoke with the playwright Emily Kaczmarek and child actor Cora Steiger to talk about how the play deals with the trauma of experiencing such a tragic event.
When did this story begin to develop in your head, and what was the catalyst of it?
I wrote the first draft of Soft Target in 2018. It was a really bad year, particularly bad year for mass shootings and school shootings in particular. It was the year of Parkland. Anytime there is a mass shooting, particularly a school shooting, but any of them really, it's just, I don't know how to metabolize them. So I knew I wanted to write about it because the things that keep me up at night tend to be where I start plays. I think on its face, when people hear what it's about, especially before they've experienced it in a theater, people can feel nervous or scared or sort of pre-upset. I really didn't want to write something that felt preachy or didactic or like an after-school special or a bummer. So I started thinking about, what are some sort of side doors into the subject matter. And I also knew that I really wanted to center a child, and I really wanted to give that child power in the context of the play, because I think that on the issue of gun violence in the real world, children are so at the mercy of adults. They're so at the mercy of our laws or lack of laws and our politics and our infighting and everything. And so I knew that if I was going to write a play about a kid, I wanted her to not just be like a victim or an accessory. I wanted her to really be the center. And then I started thinking about, ways to invert the real life power dynamic. And I was like, who would this girl have power over? And I started thinking about her toys.
What am I hurt with?
There's a hole in your side. Get in.
Once I had the conceit of the toys being played by adult actors sort of orbiting around this child actor, then it felt like I had a way in that would offer some humor and some levity and some sort of playfulness and strangeness that would create the space to then tackle the harder stuff.
Sit down.
No, can't do that. No, can't do.
You've got stuffing coming out of your heels. Come on, I'll read to you.
No, thanks.
Did you have anyone in mind as you were putting these stories together, as you were developing these characters that were going to be toys played by adults?
When mass shootings are reported on, there's often the number of people killed and the number of people wounded, and the number of survivors and witnesses who were there, whether they were other, potential targets or whether they were first responders or people who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, like those people's lives are forever changed. I didn't want to, co-opt any particular survivor story, of course, but I did sort of pull and sort of collate inspiration from reading about a lot of different survivors of different ages. We have a child at the center of the show, so the whole team has put so much energy and care and resources towards making sure that that child actor is protected and feels safe and feels supported in portraying this character arc.
Because today we're going to part in the school play, which is Peter Pan. And guess who I am? Peter Pan! I'm Cora Steiger. I'm 12 years old, and currently I am in 7th grade.
Tell me a little bit about the character that you are going to be playing. Who is she? How old is she? What is she going through in Soft Target?
Well, Amanda is a 9-year-old girl, and she has just gone through a school shooting at her school, which is obviously, it's devastating. But in this show, there are so many funny parts, and it's about hope and getting the courage to be able to move on and heal.
But
For
why?
no good reason, that's why.
But that's horrible.
I know. I was so excited to be able to portray this amazing, brave and resilient young girl. I could not believe that I was going to be able to tell her story. I am from Oxford, and I didn't personally experience the shooting, and I didn't have family members at the high school at the time. But I do remember sitting at home, hearing all the ambulances. It was kind of just crazy. And I think that really helped me be able to portray Amanda when I'm doing these hard scenes.
When people come to the Detroit Public Theater to experience the work that you and your cast members are doing, what do you hope that they take away from the show?
I really hope when they leave, they get to feel hopeful. And that what we're doing doesn't define us, but it helps us give up the courage to be able to talk about it with people.
And you can see Soft Target at Detroit Public Theater through June 8th. Let's turn now to the topic of public transportation. 5 of the Detroit mayoral candidates weighed in on the city's transit needs at the Detroit Moves Forum held last week at New Lab at Michigan Central. One Detroit contributor, Stephen Henderson, moderated the conversation, which included the candidates' thoughts on improving the city's bus system. Here's a portion of that forum.
I want to start with a discussion about DDOT, which for those of us who live in the city is our public transportation system, the bus system. It certainly is not what many people who live in our city need to get consistently and reliably to the places that they need to go each day. If you were elected mayor, what kind of things do you think it needs, and how specifically would you make those changes? I'm going to start to my immediate right, and we're going to go down the row. Jonathan.
The experience that I bring to this race and to this position is just different. It's just so extensive and so diverse. You will never hear of a candidate that says they rode DDOT this year. You will never hear another candidate say that they, when the car was given to their younger sister, him and his mom had to ride the bus from downriver up 4th Street all the way to get to Wayne State just for a few semesters just to save up a few more dollars. So I've seen DDOT through and through. DDOT right now currently still has lag times. There is still a need to clean up the atmosphere. Rosa Parks Terminal has a number of different homeless individuals down there when it's cold. They use it as a warming shelter. There has to be a comprehensive strategy. And I'm the only candidate here with an 11-page plan that brings money, jobs, and homes and brings that comprehensive intent to reaching every family and every individual. And so right now, DDOT is just part of the equation. It can be surrounded with other resources, and that's what I intend to do.
You talked about money and other things. Talk more specifically about money, where you would get it, how you'd spend it.
So I'm looking at filling in the gaps right now. And I'm again looking at creating a citizen dashboard, which is one of the first that will ever be created in order to really wrap the services around each and every individual, to be able to support organizations like United Way, Jobs for Progress, and others that just came to us. We have to be able to intentionally hold everyone's hand. And so when you talk about the money and where it's going to come from, I'm looking at the plan, the budget right now. I'm looking at all the shortages. I see what they did for homeless, but I don't see a comprehensive transportation anchor in all the strategies that they're putting together. So my first day in office, besides meeting with the superintendent of schools to make sure that those 5,000 families that are categorized as homeless are getting their arms wrapped around them, it's also to make sure that every last partner that could be at the table is at the table to see really where our assets and infrastructure are so that we can put the money where it needs. And I believe that with the council that is coming in, that I have the most relationships with everyone in the races, that I'll be able to pass something that totally satisfies their needs.
Santil, give us your assessment of DDOT.
First, I want to give kudos to my colleague to my right, Fred Durhall, because City Council did increase DDOT's budget by $20 million this year. So we'll start there. And I'll also say that I was actually on DDOT 2 weeks ago, Jonathan, so you're not the only one. I was on the Warren bus. It was about 40 minutes late.
40 minutes.
It was about 40 minutes late. We waited for about 40 minutes. So I took the bus to Castech every day. I took 2 buses, the Plymouth bus to Grand River to Castech. I don't know how you can take the bus to school every day and get to school on time every day. One, if the routes are running every 40 minutes, which is the case for the majority of routes in Detroit right now. And then if it only comes every 40 minutes and it breaks down or is late, then you're talking about an hour and a half, 2 hours being late to your destination, whether it's school or work. You can't get fired from school, but you can get fired from your job if you can't make it to and from work. So first of all, we need to increase the routes. Secondly, we need to increase the number of buses on routes as well as the number of actual routes. The dollars that were put into the budget, I hope, will be used in large part for salaries, and for salaries of bus drivers and salaries of mechanics. Right now, our bus drivers make on average about $7 less than bus drivers for SMART, which makes it really hard to keep good bus drivers, right? Our mechanics make less than SMART mechanics. Even if we have the right number of drivers, but we don't have people to fix the buses, when they break down, it becomes a service issue. So those basic issues we have to address. In addition to that, we should have a combination of traditional buses and shuttles that go shorter, smaller routes. We need transportation hubs around the city, not just Rosa Parks. There should be a hub in each of the 7 districts. So that's where I would start.
Quickly, that sounds expensive. Where would the money come from?
So a couple things. One, the dollars that are in DDOT now, it's great that we got an additional $20 million, but we also know that more years than not, DDOT returns funding. And usually that is because of the shortage of staff, right? So the first thing we have to do is if we spend the money that's there, that will fill a lot of the gaps. Secondly, if the buses, the traditional buses that currently are half full are replaced with shuttles, that in itself would save money and it would allow us to serve more routes with a smaller number of people.
Okay. Fred, you're next.
I do want to first say I have rode the bus a few times as well. Being a council member, we engage frequently on this issue in the city of Detroit. Big shout out to Transportation's Riders United and all the many other advocacy groups that push for transit change here in the city. I rode the Joy Road bus, by the way. And thank you again for mentioning how we added an additional $20 million for DDOT in this year's city budget. And of that allocation, Council again added an additional $2.8 million into the DDOT budget. I sponsored some of that funding. $675,000 of that funding is going to redo the seats on DDOT buses after talking to residents here in the city of Detroit who are tired of bringing bed bugs home from riding on the cloth seats. And then we also put $50,000 into the DDOT budget to create a study to see what it would take to bring paratransit services in-house for members of our disabled community. Additionally, we put another $2 million in there to increase the number of bus shelters here throughout the city of Detroit. And through all of that, the funding is still not enough. As we talk to our advocates, as we look at other cities and municipalities around this country, particularly in our region, we're behind on transit funding and how we create transit here in the city of Detroit. And so one of the things that we would be focused on, right now we have a program called DDOT Reimagined. That is in the city of Detroit. We want to try to reimagine how that's reimagined relative to funding. Yes, we need increased service, right? We've got to put more routes throughout the city of Detroit, re-examine routes, and find out how we're connecting. The average wait time on routes that are not main streets or corridors are close to 30 to 45 minutes. Connected to that, you may be at a route, rain, sleet, hail, snow, there's no shelter. And so we want to ensure that we are increasing those routes, all of those routes that may take a little bit longer, ensure that we have bus shelters there for our residents. But what it's going to take as well, one of our biggest problems here, no matter how many buses we put on the road, we need more drivers. And so we had to become more competitive with salaries. We just gave our drivers not too long ago a pay bump. But it's still not competitive to other cities and municipalities around this state.
Where would you get the money to do those things?
The majority of our funding comes from the federal government. And right now, as we are looking at the funding, that has slowed down here significantly in the state of Michigan, and particularly the city of Detroit. And so we will have to work with our state partners and our regional partners. My grand idea for transportation here is to create a regional transit system here in the city of Detroit, like you see in DC, like you see in Chicago, like you see in New York or Philadelphia. We have to partner with our surrounding communities and connect neighborhoods, and then we'll have the ability to share the cost that it takes to move our residents through these different communities.
Rogelio, you are up next.
This in every aspect is quite simply about the math. We have lost, on average, since 1975, over the last 50 years, an average of 18,000 people a year, up until we turned the corner this year with a increase of 1,500 people. At that rate, it would take 600 years to get back to where we were 50 years ago. That is not a plan. So that said, what do we do? What does anybody do in terms of realizing efficiencies through economies of scale? And that is consolidate, merge, joint operating agreements. And I mean, there's any number of characterizations, but the bottom line is this. We need to pool our resources, make them more efficient, to be more effective in making our region more competitive in terms of being able to move our workforce around. My solution, my answer, my response to this is quite simply, it's time to revisit annexation. This is a Sankofa moment for Detroit. We need to look at our history in order to strengthen our future, and those things that worked and are still on the books can still be brought to bear. What does that mean for Detroit financially? Possibly as much as 10% an increase in federal revenue sharing. That's a start. Plus, the mix of getting back to over 1 million people in our region sets back, of course, corrects what's been happening in this city at least the last 25, if not the last 50 years. Just because we're out of bankruptcy does not mean we're not distressed. We still have all of the characteristics of a distressed city. And the only way that I see forward in terms of a growth plan is to work with our neighbors.
Todd, you're up next.
Let me jump to the first thing that I know you're going to jump with was money. It's always about money. And I don't disagree that the money that we have comes from the feds when it deals with transportation, but I also do agree that some type of collegiality amongst the communities in some form of authority is going to be necessary in order to bridge what has been not only a social, ethnic, racial, and political divide that has really kept us separate. Unfortunately, I do recall an instance in which Livonia did not want bus service with the new businesses that they had because, for all intents and purposes, as a Detroiter, I felt that they didn't want Detroiters in their community. Well, hopefully we're moving beyond that, but I don't believe the idea of annexation or building communities and merging our communities is a reality at this point. So let me speak from a perspective of an individual. For every day, except the last day of high school when my parents were able to rent a car so I could go to prom, I caught the bus. And now, as an adult, I still catch the bus from time to time, but I have to be at various different courts, so it's not really practical for me to leave downtown and go out to Pontiac. I have to drive because we do not have a system of transportation. So as I see it, what I've seen is the bus system that's working in DDOT, that's working in the city of Detroit. I've had an opportunity to talk to the unions, and they are working to make sure that they become more competitive with SMART. And what they're doing is, even though they may not have the starting pay as SMART, but what they're trying to do is work on the benefits. But what I think is most important in the bus system is, in the bus system, we need to market that bus systems are going to be safe and that people can ride those buses. And I think if people feel safe to ride those buses, the participation will be greater. And that's most important, because they've turned down money that city council or that the city was willing to offer because they don't have the riders. And without the marketing and telling them you have a safe bus system, it's all for naught.
If you're looking for something to do for Mother's Day, there are plenty of arts and culture events taking place this weekend in Metro Detroit. Cecilia Sharp and Peter Wharf from 90.9 WRCJ have today's One Detroit Weekend.
Hey everyone, Cecilia and Peter here, ready to share some great events to make your weekend plans even better. Peter, what's first?
The Grosse Pointe Theater is bringing The Secret Garden, the musical, to life at Parcells Auditorium. It's a heartwarming story about loss, healing, and rebirth, filled with beautiful music. It runs through May 11th.
If you're in the mood for another powerful story, Ragtime opens at the Players Guild of Dearborn. This Broadway classic weaves together the lives of immigrants, African Americans, and the upper class in early 20th century America. It runs May 9th through the 18th.
For music lovers, the Fox Theater hosts Something for the Ladies, a pre-Mother's Day R&B jam featuring Tyrese, Kelly Price, and Kiki Wyatt on May 9th. It's a night packed with soulful hits and good vibes.
Now, Peter, I'm always down for some good vibes. And if you want to soak up some fresh air this weekend, the Backyard Art Fair in Ferndale on May 10th is perfect. There will be local artists, handmade goods, music, and food trucks.
And don't miss the Central Park 5 at the Detroit Opera House. It's a moving contemporary opera based on the real-life story of 5 young men wrongfully convicted and their fight for justice. Performances are May 10th, 16th, and 18th.
And there's always even more to experience around Detroit, so stick around and see some more options.
There's another event coming up later this month that we want to share with you. According to the Vietnamese American Association of Michigan, there are over 20,000 Vietnamese Americans in our state. On May 18th, the organization will commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Fall of Saigon. The event takes place at the Hazel Park Community Center from 2 to 5 p.m., and the public is invited.
This year is the 50th anniversary of the Fall of Saigon. Because of that war that had torn so many families apart, and my family's included, so much pain and so much hurt that everybody had to endure. This is the photo of my family. back in 1984. We want our story to be heard, and we want people to know that for whatever we went through, everybody can do it. Everybody can make a new life in the new country that gives you freedom.
One Detroit will be on site, gathering oral histories as part of our Destination Detroit initiative. Detroit PBS has been collecting personal and historical stories throughout the year, explaining how families ended up in Metro Detroit. That'll do it for this week's One Detroit. Thanks for watching. Head to the One Detroit website for all the stories we're working on, follow us on social media, and sign up for our weekly newsletter.
From Delta faucets to Behr paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit PBS.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit PBS. Through our giving, we are committed to meeting the needs of the communities we serve statewide to help ensure a bright and thriving future for all. Learn more at dtefoundation.com.
Nissan Foundation, and viewers like you.